So the question we do as human beings is, what do you do with the part of yourself that in some deep way does not want to be here, does not want to do business as usual, can't stand the idea that this is going to be what it's going to be like until they carry me out? That idea is too painful to consider. So what people do is they live day to day. And sometimes the Nazir inside of you says, the one that says, oh, things have to change, actually goes out and does something. Okay? Right? Because I think what they would say is if you don't go out and do something on the spiritual level, you're going to act out on some other level. This is or you're going to depress and you're never going to change your life circumstances. So I think the three things here, the things that break apart a community, the things that break apart a family, and the things that are breaking inside of a human being, I think are the three focuses here. Then the Torah moves to the apex, one of the apex of the Torah, if not the apex of the Torah, which is the priestly blessing. Just want to mention the core of which is, I think, the phrase that says, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Okay? May God shine his light upon you and be gracious to you. I just want to focus on those two words. The light of God is a common theme throughout the Bible because we're trying to answer the question of what do we mean by there's a part of God in each of us without physicalizing it. So people say, I believe the God inside of me. Well, it's a metaphor. God doesn't take up space. What's the metaphor for something that is A, present, and B, not physical? What's the best metaphor for something that is A, sometimes unbearably present, and B, not physical? To some degree, I mean, light is particles and waves, but from our experience, light does not take up space. It's in space, doesn't take up space. So one of the most dominant metaphors, if not the dominant metaphor for God's presence is light. I think ever since the beginning of human metaphors, which is the beginning of the conscious mind, we have used the image of light, an enlightened human being, a person filled with God's light. So it says, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha, may the divine light shine upon you. And whenever I give that bracha, I always say, may the divine light shine upon you and in you. Shine upon you and in you. So the shining is also shines within. Like the phrase from Proverbs, the light of God is the human soul. So oftentimes when people are struggling with the divine, because they're thinking theology, I say, turn this around, try to image the divine presence as light, and what it would mean if the light went on inside. What would that be like? That's the first image. I think it's one of our most profound images. The second one is grace, and be gracious to you. And again, I think one of my personal missions in our tradition has been to rehabilitate the word grace. People who don't know about the word think it's a Christian word. In fact, it's all over the Jewish prayer book. It's right here. May God be gracious to you. You have it in the daily prayers where it says, Ata chonen la'adam da'at, you graciously give to the human being da'at. So the idea of grace is deeply permeates the Jewish tradition. So what does grace mean? Grace means something like experiencing the love of another person that at that moment does not feel earned. Now, you have to work in every relationship, but there's a moment in a relationship where hopefully someone just says to you, I love you out of nowhere. They just look at you and you can feel the love coming toward you and a deep appreciation of your being as a human being. Okay? That's a moment of grace, a moment of beauty. So what the Bible hopes for is sometimes you're sitting there and you can feel the grace of God upon you. God loving you not because you did a mitzvah or a good deed or something, but suddenly you became aware of the divine and the divine became uniquely aware of you and you're flooded with light and grace. Why is this here? I think because if you felt that God blessed you and stood guard over you, that God's light was flooding into you and you were inundated with grace, God was present to you and gave you wholeness, we wouldn't steal. We wouldn't be so hard on each other in our families. Right? And maybe that part of us that needs to split off, we could actually reintegrate. So some part of me sees this Torah portion with the theft, the sota, the nazir, and the priestly blessing at the end, is one of the most beautiful literary units in the entire Torah. It's a stunning, in a way, theological statement.
Sing, sing, shalom, sing. שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה.